Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome, or PCOS, is a problem that affects 1 out of every 10 women of childbearing age. My name is JaiRicine, and I'm one of those 10. Hi guys, welcome to my channel, and if you haven't already, figured it out already, this video is going to be about my recent diagnosis with PCOS, also known as Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome. Bear with me because I have my cell phone here, but for those of you that don't know, Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome, or PCOS, is a common health problem caused by an imbalance of reproductive hormones. The hormonal imbalance creates problems in the ovaries, and the ovaries make the egg that is released each month, which is a part of a healthy, menstrual cycle. With PCOS, the egg may not develop as it should, or it may not be released during ovulation as it should be. So PCOS ultimately can cause irregular periods, or, you're not ovulating. So how would you know? How would you know that you have PCOS? Like, what are some of the telltale signs? For me, I have very excessive hairiness, typically in my chin area, my legs, the bikini area. So that was one thing. I tend to gain weight really quickly, and then it's very hard for me to get that weight off. So that was another thing that kind of stood out to me. My blood pressure is very, all over the place. That was another thing. And then, ultimately the two biggest signs for me, other than the hairiness, was the fact that, my periods were very irregular, and then, getting negative OPKs because I am actively trying. So, taking those OPKs and never getting a peak day was kind of like, okay, what's going on here? Like, why is this not happening? So, another thing for you to be aware of is, if you suspect something is wrong, but you're kind of putting it off because, hey, I get a period, kind of often. Like, just know that there's still a chance that something may be wrong. Just because you get a period does not mean that you ovulate. And I feel like a lot of women have a misconception with that, or we tend to think that. I don't know where that thinking comes from. But just because you have a period does not mean that you ovulate. So one of the reasons why I kind of never paid attention, or, thought too hard into what I thought was going on with me, not only because I didn't have, a set clinical diagnosis, was the fact that, okay, well, you're hairy, you gain, weight quick, or, you may not get a positive OPK all the time, but you are having a period kind of frequently, or more frequently than, women who are definitely labeled as infertile is having. I've read on forums that there's women that, don't have periods for maybe 4 months at a time. And my situation wasn't that severe. If my period is late, it's late by the latest I feel like was maybe like a month. But other than that, it was pretty spot on. So I kind of just, chucked it up to, okay, well, maybe you're just hairy because you're hairy. Or maybe, you're gaining weight so quickly because you love Popeyes. And I do. But I really don't feel like 30 pounds within 2 months is, the norm. So those were some of my symptoms, but, according to womenshealth.gov, some of the symptoms of PCOS include irregular menstrual cycle, which I have, too much hair, which is typically on the face, chin, or parts of the area where men normally have hair, and I do. My legs are super hairy, more hairy than my boyfriend. My arms, my chin area. Having acne. I don't typically have that issue, but that is an issue that you can have if you suffer from PCOS. Thinning hair, which is kind of odd in my case because I feel like I'm experiencing that now. Or maybe it's just that I suck at, maintaining my hair, which I tend to do when it's cold outside. And right now it is freezing outside. But yeah, thinning hair can definitely be an issue, even if you are having excessive body hair. Weight gain or difficulty losing weight, such as I'm experiencing. Darkening of the skin, which is another thing, like in these areas, which I definitely have. That can be another sign. And then skin tags. Now that I'm thinking on it, kind of that's an issue too. Well, not skin tags, but more so moles. I feel like I'm finding moles every other day. Like, okay, this wasn't here last week, but those are some of the symptoms of someone that has PCOS. So those are some of the telltale signs you can look for if you suspect something but haven't had a set clinical diagnosis. So if any of those things, reign true for you, or you feel like you deal with those things, I highly suggest talking to, if not your general physician, then talk to your OB. And if you don't feel like you're making leeway, definitely find a referral for another physician or look around yourself, which is what I did. And it's one of the best decisions that I feel like I could have ever made for myself in trying to get to conceiving this baby. A little bit into my story. I've been figuring that I had an issue somewhere in the fertility department for a minute. I wasn't more so trying then like I am now, but I had some telltale signs that something may not be right. So I discussed my concerns with my OBGYN at the time, and he kind of always brushed it off, or just really didn't pay too much into it. So around the time that I was about maybe 18 or 19 years old, I started to gather that I didn't look like other women that I knew. I started to notice that I was super hairy, and I just kind of felt like, hairy women in my family isn't an uncommon thing. So I'm just like, oh, you just have the family genes. Just nair, it'll be okay. You'll figure it out. But then I started to notice, like, okay, the hair is there, but it's a little excessive. So that was one of the things that kind of stood out for me, that made me feel like, okay, something's a little bit different with me than everybody else. And then not only that, then I started to have irregularities in, is that the word? I feel like that's the word. Irregularities. Ooh, I feel smart. Irregularities with my my menstrual cycle. So one month I would get a period like clockwork. The next month maybe clockwork again, and then the month after that, then nothing. My menstrual cycles would skip and jump all over the place, which is what I'm currently going through now. I'm currently late right now, and I know for a fact that I'm not pregnant because I just know. But yeah, that was another telltale sign that, something was a little bit off with me. So these things that I gathered, or that I started to notice, I did mention to my OBGYN at the time, and he just didn't seem too interested by it. It was just like, well, you're hairy, get hair removal. They have things like nair if that's what you want to do. My periods hop me up on medication, even birth control to try to regulate my hormones, which was counterintuitive, being that, at some point, not then, but at some point I knew that I did want to get pregnant, and, being on birth control wasn't really the thing to do, to lead to that. So I went through having an inkling that something wasn't right, but not really knowing necessarily what it was for quite some time. Maybe from the time, like I said, that, I was like 18, 19 up until legit 3 days ago, I finally got a diagnosis. So yeah, that's a long time to feel like, that's a long time to feel broken. And that's exactly how I felt. Not more so broken in my spirit. Well, it's at sometimes, but just more so broken, like defective. It's hard to deal with a problem that makes you feel like you're less than. And I feel like, having children and, conceiving and being able to carry a baby is something that we feel as women we're just supposed to be able to do. And unfortunately, there's, women like myself that have issues with that, and, it makes you feel like you're defective. So for those years, I very much so felt like I was defective, and then, not really having any concrete answers or proof that something is going on with you. It messes with you. It very much so makes you feel very uncertain about the future, and can make you depressed. I was very depressed for a long time. So getting this diagnosis was like a double-edged sword. It's like, okay, nobody wants to be told that they have issues that's leading them to be infertile. But again, at least now and you can take steps to get to the goal line, or at least now you have some sort of answers. So that's where I'm at now. So I finally said enough was enough. Me and my boyfriend have been trying, and just recently, we tried. I took OPKs, and the OPKs told me that, I was having fertile days, but I never hit my peak. So for those of you that don't know how OPKs work, you'll take an OPK when you think you may be ovulating, and then you may get, not fertile. You'll get fertile days, which is days where you have a higher chance of conceiving, but it's not the day you ovulate. And then you'll have a peak day, which is the end all be all. Do it that day. Ovulation should occur 24 to 72 hours after you get that peak signal. So me and my boyfriend did it, baby danced every other day during my fertile window. And ultimately, after that time, I didn't get a period, and my period stayed away for quite some time. I was in a 64-day cycle before my period came. So me and my boyfriend was super excited. We, were certain that we were pregnant. I took pregnancy tests. They came back negative, but, I always assumed that I had a hormonal problem. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe my hormones are just super low, which is why the pregnancy tests are coming back negative. So I scheduled with my OBGYN at the time to, get blood work done, and, maybe an ultrasound to see if they saw anything. And, I get there, and they were just very unconcerned with what I was telling them. Actually, one of the medical assistants there made a comment, because I had a late appointment. She made a comment like, geez, I hope you're the last person of the day, because I'm ready to go home. So yeah, he comes in, and I tell him what I'm going through, and also, other concerns that I had, because if we weren't pregnant right now, then us getting pregnant later on was something that we were definitely trying to achieve. And, I would need help in that department, being that we have been, trying for so long and nothing's been happening. So, while I was there, I let him know, like, listen, the hair is very concerning to me. I'm pretty sure something's off. Can I get a hormonal test done? He tells me, yes, they can do a hormonal test, but it would have to be done by blood on the 3rd day of my cycle. So come back in on the 3rd day of my cycle. And, that really doesn't help me any, because, I don't really know when that is. My periods are irregular. How can I come in and schedule a test that I have no clue when it's going to take place? So right then and there, it was kind of like, all right, I need to seek, assistance from somebody else, somebody that, actually is concerned with what's going on with me, and just not, accepting a copay or getting, you know, paid out of my misery, which is what I ultimately feel like was happening there. I felt like I wasn't getting any answers because he just wanted me to keep coming back and spending money. So I found a new doctor, which I love, and he finally gave me the answers that I've been so desperately waiting to hear for all these years. So I told him, you know, the things that I was experiencing, the weight gain, the hair, the high blood pressure, the irregular periods, and, you know, negative OPKs. And, you know, he just said right off the bat, yeah, you're 110% the face of PCOS. You have it. And this is what we're going to do. So he plans to have me do an ultrasound so he can evaluate how large the cysts are that's on my ovaries. And then from there, he plans to start me on a fertility drug that I'm pretty sure most know about, which is called Clomid. And Clomid helps you to ovulate. And the success rate for Clomid is very high. So for those of you that's suffering with PCOS, I definitely recommend, first off, finding somebody to listen to what it is you're expecting. And then you can go ahead and be put on those fertility drugs, and they do have a high success rate. Most women that's put on Clomid, they tend to conceive within 3 to 6 months. So the success rate is pretty high. So if you do have PCOS, you know, there is a silver lining, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. But I feel like more so the hardest part is just getting a diagnosis or finding a physician that actually cares about what it is your concerns are or what it is you have to say. So yeah, that's where I'm at with that. Very excited to start the Clomid, and I plan on recording my journey to baby, and you know, however long it takes. I'll be updating you guys, and not more so, you know, just updating you guys, but keeping this for myself. So, because I know it's going to be rough, and it has been rough, and then I can at least have something to go back on and keep me pushing. And then hopefully when my baby gets here, something for he or she to look back on and see, you know, how far I went to conceive them and how much their mom and dad cares for them. Yeah, I'm not gonna get emotional. But these videos are, you know, are way more than just vlogs. Other women posting has helped me a lot. Because when I didn't have answers with what was going on with me, I turned to YouTube, and I very much so identified with the women that I was, you know, watching. And it kind of helped me come to the realization on my own before I even got a clinical diagnosis, like, yeah, this is what's going on with me. And, you know, it gave me somebody to relate to, because I have nobody around me that's going through what I'm going through. And those videos very much helped me come to my own reality and cope with things. So yeah, so these videos are for myself and for my children to go back and look to when they get here, because they will get here. It just won't be easy. And this is also for other women that's going through what I'm going through and need somebody to relate to. So that is it, folks. I've had my nervous breakdown. I had my cry. I spoke my piece. And, you know, I hope you guys stick around, and I will see you guys in the next video.